Hello and welcome into another episode of the Bunch of Nuts podcast. My name is Blake Biscardi. I'm filling in today for Dan and Cass, both feeling under the weather. It's next man up mentality around here at Bunch of Nuts and the Silver Bulletin. That's what we do. Got a great staff, great team. So I will be bringing the show to you today. Ohio State and Illinois. This is Fox's big noon Saturday game, going to be a big noon kickoff. Again, Ohio State's not had to deal with too many of these so far this season. Now they have had one against Texas and now Illinois in its two biggest games. This is another ranked matchup. Looking at this game for Ohio State, the dynamics that go into it. Can Illinois pull the upset? How good actually is Illinois? The last time we saw them play a ranked team, they got the doors blown off them against Indiana, 63-10. Ryan Day said in his press conference this week, throw that game away. That was the outlier. He thinks Illinois is a better team than that. I think Illinois is a better team than that. But Ryan Day's main focus this entire season, and he reemphasized it this week, it's about us. It's not about the opponent. It's about us. Week after week, it is about us and what we can do and who we are as a team, referring to Ohio State. And that's the mentality to keep this team and this group hungry. They won a national championship a year ago. The defense lost 8 starters. Key contributors left on offense, mainly Will Howard at quarterback, running backs Travion Henderson, Quinshad Judkins, and a handful of guys on the offensive line. So, yeah, there's some guys on this Ohio State team like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles that won this national championship a year ago that are leading this year's team. But there's also a lot of guys who were not in the starting lineup that are wanting to prove that this year's team can go win a national championship too. And part of going to win a national championship this year is keeping that mentality, because when you're a defending champion, it's really easy to have a hangover. It's really easy to get complacent. And that's what Ohio State has avoided so far through 5 games. And they're going to look to avoid again on Saturday in Champaign. Now, this is an early local kick, 11 a.m. Sometimes it could be one of those sleepy kickoff games. You know, Alabama's going to deal with that at Missouri this week, coming off of 2 ranked games. And you have to think about, for Illinois, this game has been circled. Every time any team plays Ohio State, it's just like the Super Bowl. And for Illinois, this game has been circled all year long. Bret Bilema is no stranger to playing Ohio State in a big spot. If you would remember 2010, he was the head coach at Wisconsin. The Badgers were good on special teams that year and ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, starting the game immediately with fireworks. Camp Randall was rocking that night with Terrell Pryor on the opposite side for Ohio State. It was the top-ranked Buckeyes against the 18th ranked Badgers, and Wisconsin pulled the upset that night. Bret Bilema has talked with his team about that experience. He is no stranger to it. And that tells me Illinois is going to have something up their sleeve in this game. It's at home. It's their biggest home game of the season. They can get a marquee win and insert themselves right into the Big Ten and college football playoff mix with a victory. So there's a lot riding on this matchup for the Illini. And how Bret Bielema coaches, he likes to emphasize special teams, but his defense is usually really good. And his teams like to run the football. And Illinois has been able to run the football a little bit this year. Their offensive line, though, has been a little bit underwhelming. And that's going to be something to watch in the game, because Curt Cignetti said after Indiana beat Illinois, he said, if you watch the Duke game, we knew that we were going to be able to get pressure. And what Ohio State has been able to do this season in most games is get pressure with 4. So if Ohio State is able to get pressure with 4 defensive linemen and they can drop 7 in coverage, I think that's going to be a really, really tough day for the Illinois offense. With Luke Altmaier, as good as he is and as efficient as he's been, it's going to be really hard to operate because that defense for Ohio State is that good. Hank Beatty is their leading receiver. He is averaging almost 18 yards a catch. He has 2 touchdowns on the season. He's going to be somebody to watch on the outside. Davison Igbinosun or Jermaine Matthews, one of the two, will be able to lock him down. And then you'll have that safety help from Caleb Downs or so on the backside of that defense, maybe Malik Hartford. But a big focus for this game for Ohio State defensively is going to be the linebackers. Will the linebackers have to blitz? Will they be in coverage? Where are they going to be on the field? Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese have been the 2 best linebackers of the best duo in the country so far through 5 weeks. But I think as a whole, with this Ohio State team, what I really want to focus on, what do you think about? Just take this moment, sit back. I say the 2025 Ohio State Buckeyes. What is your first thought? It's probably the defense. for how good that it's playing so far. This team is 5-0. This team is giving up 5 points a game on defense. Matt Patricia has elevated the defense from a year ago. And the defense a year ago under Jim Knowles that lost 8 starters to the NFL draft was giving up, or was the number 1 ranked scoring defense in the country. How can you get better than that? Well, it's simple. The approach has changed from Jim Knowles to Matt Patricia. The disguises, the looks, the simulated pressures that Patricia's running is an aggressive scheme, but it's really hard to diagnose. Jim Knowles' defense was always a bend but don't break. And even still last year in the Oregon game, the defense got torched. Remember, Denzel Burke had almost 200 yards on his head in that game. And all of a sudden, there were some adjustments that were made after that game where Ryan Day had gotten involved, Larry Johnson, Jim Knowles, they all went back to the drawing board. They changed some of their approach. They started moving Caleb Downs closer to the line of scrimmage. And that is something, when you have a guy like Caleb Downs, number one, it's elite to have him as a safety on the backside of your defense. But Caleb Downs is so intelligent and he's so athletic and he's such a gifted athlete that when you move him closer to the line of scrimmage and he could diagnose those run fits, or he can shoot a gap, or he can just make a tackle in the open space. I'll tell you right now, if you're one-on-one with Caleb Downs or with Sonny Styles, you're going down. You're tackled. It is as sure of a tackle as you're going to find with Downs, and being able to move him lower into a linebacker position, him playing nickel. There's so much versatility with Caleb Downs because of his skill set. And that's something for Ohio State that is going to be so pivotal in this game. If they're able to get pressure with 4, just having Caleb Downs kind of roam, it's going to make life really difficult for Illinois. And you almost think about it in these games. This is how I'm looking at it. If I'm picking Ohio State against the number in these games, the spread is sitting at 14.5. I'll just look at it blank and say, okay, how many points can Ohio State score in this game? Like, if I could say just a good day, not saying everything clicks, just a good day for Ohio State. I think that they could score 28 points. I think that they could score 31, 35 points in the game, right? Subtract the spread from that. Do you think that Illinois can score 13 points on Ohio State? Do you think Illinois can score 17 or 21 points on Ohio State? Do you think any team can score that much on Ohio State? I mean, that's a question I think about. Minnesota last week is a good example. Washington a couple weeks ago, Texas in week 1. 66 yards on the opening drive. They settled for a field goal, Minnesota. They barely had 100 yards for the rest of the game. They couldn't do anything. PJ Fleck said in his press conference after the game last week that that's the best defense that he's ever seen in 13 years. How hard it is to diagnose and really understand what they're doing, because there's so many looks, pre-snap, post-snap, adjustments, after halftime, zone, man, all these different things that this Ohio State defense is able to do because of the skill set of these players, because of Matt Patricia's system, and because of how intelligent you have with guys like Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles leading this unit. Not to mention the freak talent of Arvell Reese, who's playing at linebacker, who has been absolutely incredible so far this year, and Caden Curry coming on really strong, 11 tackles a couple of weeks ago. Just an elite performance from this Ohio State defense, and I need to see it before I can believe it that someone can go ahead and score 3 times on Ohio State. Sure, go ahead, go down the field, score a touchdown. But can you do that again? And then can you do that again? That's what I question. Can you sustain 3 drives against Ohio State? And like I said, the first thing you're probably thinking about is this defense, how good it is. Matt Patricia, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles. We know that Jeremiah Smith, the best player in the country, is on the other side of the field on offense. Carnell Tate is on the other side of the field, also at wide receiver. Stud 5-star quarterback, Julian Sayin, under center, completing 80% of his passes. You have a freshman running back, Bo Jackson, who's come on really strong, averaging 7.5 yards a carry so far this season. He's now the team's leading rusher and is likely taken over the starting job from James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson, although I expect a rotation of those back still. Then you also get a transfer tight end in Max Klare. Then you have an offensive line that is statistically playing like the best, if not one of the best in the country. They're really highly ranked in pressure rate and sacks given up. It's hard to get to Sayin. So all of this focus on this Ohio State defense, can you in any sense sustain 3 drives to score on Ohio State, whether that is field goal, field goal, field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown, field goal, or touchdown, touchdown, touchdown? Any of those combinations, can you sustain 3 drives on Ohio State to score between 9 and 21 points? Then can your defense stop Jeremiah Smith, Julian Sayin, Carnell Tate, Bo Jackson, Max Klare, Brandon Ennis, and a really good offensive line? Can you hold them to less points than that? So if you're going to score, let's say a team gets 3 touchdowns. Can you hold Ohio State to less than 3 touchdowns? Is that possible? Can your defense do that? This is almost how you have to evaluate this Ohio State team. It's very similar to what you would think about with those Georgia teams from a couple of years ago with Kirby Smart and that vaunted defense. Can you score that many points on this defense? And then can you stop that offense from scoring at all? Ohio State has not really had to do a ton offensively yet to go win football games. They chose to beat Texas, which is a really talented roster. I know that they're unranked. I know that they're not playing to their ceiling. Texas has really good players. And it was also week 1 of the college football season. Neither team is what they are now. When you have those teams with rosters that have attrition and then you have guys going to the NFL and you have transfer portal additions, you don't know how that's going to come together. That's why preseason rankings are difficult, because you don't know how these rosters are going to go ahead and come together. It makes it really difficult to project and to predict when you haven't seen results on the field. Sometimes they just don't gel. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks to get going. Sometimes it stays potential energy. Sometimes you think, okay, the hype was greater than reality. And right now, that's what it is with Texas. But with Ohio State, sure, they were number 2 or number 3, depending on the poll you looked at. They chose to have a conservative offensive game plan and win the game with defense. And what did Ohio State do? They won the game with defense. They go to Washington. Julian Sayin's first road start, really loud environment, single-digit spread. They had a little bit more of an aggressive offensive approach, but it still wasn't anything that was crazy. It didn't say, oh, wow, they threw that ball all over the yard. No, I don't even think Julian Sayin attempted to pass 20-plus yards down the field. But they won the game with defense. They had some miscues in the red zone against Ohio, some miscues in the red zone or in scoring territory against Washington. The defense bailed them out. The offense couldn't convert in short yardage in that game. It didn't matter. Now, there's going to come a game where it does matter. But Ohio State can rest on its defense. The security that you can play with when your defense is that good is just that. Okay, we didn't execute. We know we're not where we need to be yet. We know we have a lot of ways to grow. We know we have further that we can develop. But when you look in that spot, Ohio State's defense was or is playing so well that it's okay if you're not playing flawless on offense, because it's a journey. You don't have to be a national championship caliber team in week 1. You need to be one at the end of the season. And part of this growth, like we saw last year, like Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer would always say, you want to play your best football in October and November toward the end of the season. You want to peak at the right time. You don't want to peak too early. And the defense playing this well has afforded Ryan Day and Brian Hartline the ability to slowly bring along Julian Sayin and add things to their plate. So yeah, you know what? Ohio State hasn't looked the cleanest offensively in every single game, but they haven't needed to. And the job of every opponent, while Ohio State is developing Julian Sayin, before they decide to really blow the lid off of the offense, can you make them uncomfortable enough where those short yardage situations actually matter and force Ohio State's hand? Can you force Ohio State to do something it doesn't want to do? Every game the Buckeyes have played has been played on their terms. Can an opponent force Ohio State out of the rhythm or the cadence that it wants to play with in that matchup? Can they force Ohio State not to dictate how the game goes? Can a team control Ohio State? That's the primary job of all of these opponents that Ohio State is going to play, because they can beat you like a Swiss Army knife. Take away the run game. Okay, now you're going to have to stop Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Max Klare, Brandon Ennis, and potentially Milan Graham, Will Kazmarek, Jelani Thurman. Doesn't seem like an easy task. It just doesn't. Then all of a sudden you think, is it possible to get 300 yards or 400 yards on this Ohio State defense? Is it possible to score 21 points? Is it possible to score 30 points? I mean, think about this. Slow the game pace down, limit possessions. Ohio State had 6 possessions against Washington. 6. They fumbled the ball on a punt return. Washington scored 6 points. They were averaging 55 points a game. Damon Williams, Jonah Coleman, Denzel Boston. They were marketed as one of the best trios in college football. You didn't hear anything about them. Washington couldn't do it. I think Illinois is a better team than Washington, but with Luke Altmaier and Valentine and Beatty, can they operate with enough efficiency to stay in a game with Ohio State? Can Illinois' defense force turnovers from Ohio State? Can they get them into those short yardage 3rd and 4th downs? Can Illinois' defense force field goals in the red zone? Those are all the things that we have to watch in this matchup for Ohio State and for Illinois. That's Illinois' path. Ohio State cannot dictate the game. That is when you see a game where Ohio State does not dictate what happens, when it's not played their way, that is where they get susceptible. Because if not, if Ohio State can do what it wants to you, go ahead. Good luck. That's what Bret Bilema is tasked to do. Is it going to be the slow substitutions? Is it going to throw off their rhythm? Is it going to be trick plays? Is there going to be something that happens on special teams like a fake punt, fake field goal? Will they block a kick? Will they run a kickoff back for a touchdown? All of these things are into consideration. Will they score on defense? A scoop and score, a pick six. Teams need a play like that, I think, against Ohio State, because I don't know if an offense right now can score that many points on this defense. Now, it's 5 weeks in. There's better opponents for Ohio State still to play. Like Illinois is going to be one of the better opponents that Ohio State's played so far, probably the second best team the Buckeyes have played. Then they've got Wisconsin, and they've got Penn State, who is not going to play like an unranked team. They're going to be in desperation mode. So that's a game that we have to watch. Then you have the game at the end of November. Bryce Underwood, Justice Haynes, and a defense, and a team you've not beaten since 2019. Like I'm saying, where Ohio State's susceptible is where they don't dictate the game. Ohio State has not dictated the game in 4 years. That's where you're going to see this team's championship medal. Because to me, the only team that has dictated or controlled Ohio State is the Wolverines. Can Illinois, can Penn State, can one of the other opponents for the Buckeyes figure out a way to do what the Wolverines have done? That's the question. And that's how I see the game. I think that Julian Sayin, I think he's going to have a good game. I think, yeah, it's a road environment. It's tough. I don't know how aggressive they'll be on the first drive or two, but I do expect Ohio State to throw the football down the field. I expect Ohio State to try to stretch the field vertically in this one. Bo Jackson, CJ Donaldson, I think they'll be the top 2 running backs in this matchup. We'll see a mix of peoples too, potentially Isaiah West, depending on situations. They're going to want to run the football. But if Illinois can force them to be one-dimensional, they can. You just have to see it could affect the game. But I just don't see how Ohio State's going to score less than 30 points in the matchup. I don't know that Illinois can score that much. And that really is how I see it. I know it sounds like a simple breakdown, and it's not a disrespectful breakdown at all. I don't think Illinois is a bad team. But if Ohio State goes and wins this game by 3 touchdowns, It doesn't make Illinois bad. It doesn't make Minnesota bad. It doesn't make Texas bad. It doesn't make Washington bad. Ohio State is beating teams so thoroughly and so soundly that the takeaway from the game is not that, whoa, Ohio State's really good. It's that team's really bad. That team's trash. That's not reality. Go look at these other teams against other opponents. Yeah, I know Texas hasn't met expectations, but we have not seen, I don't think, the full capacity of Ohio State's offense. I don't think we've even seen 65% of it. I think this defense still has another gear. We haven't seen close to the ceiling for this Ohio State team. And look at how they're beating teams right now. Just look at it. This is not the best Ohio State's going to be all year. They're going to get better. That's a scary thought for college football. And I'm not trying to make Ohio State out to be invincible. I'm just saying I need to see evidence that someone can do something against this defense or to slow down that offense, to force turnovers. Who is going to be the coach and the team that is able to do that? It's Illinois' job this week. Can they do it? If not, okay. Then it'll be Wisconsin's turn next week. Can Wisconsin do it? If they don't, can Penn State do it? And you go down the schedule. And that's what it's going to be. Ohio State's not invincible. No team is invincible in college football. No team is unbeatable. But there's a certain way when you have a team that's built like this, when you have a coaching staff that coaches the way that it does, there are certain things that need to happen for Ohio State to be susceptible. And can your team execute it? Bret Bilema has done it before. This is a different beast. Luke Altmaier has thrown for almost 1,600 yards so far this season. He needs a big day through the air. Can Illinois hit Ohio State in the mouth? Those are the kinds of questions that we just have to see. I think this is going to be a good game, but I think Ohio State's going to control the game. I do. The spread in the game is sitting at 14.5. That's down. The last Fox put out a graphic this week. The last 4 times that this game has been a ranked matchup, Illinois has won the game. Does history repeat itself? Again, these teams are different than that. It's a fun stat, to pull out, especially if you're an Illinois fan. It gives you hope. Ohio State has not been to Champaign since 2015. They've not played Illinois since 2017. And Illinois has not won the game since 2007. That Juice Williams game, I remember where I was watching that game and just like, man, Ohio State got knocked out of the national championship picture. But there was so much chaos in that season in 2007 that they still ended up backdooring into the national championship picture and ultimately losing to LSU for the second year in a row, going down to an SEC team. So Illinois is not a stranger, just like Bret Bilema was not a stranger to a big spot against Ohio State. They're just not. And that team with Juice Williams went into the horseshoe and beat them. This game's in Champaign. They have it circled. It's going to be loud. It's going to be a great environment. It's a noon kick on the East Coast. Local time, it's 11 a.m. You never know. But my perspective on the game, I don't think Illinois can score 3 times. If they do, I will tip my cap and I will admit that I'm wrong. I don't think that Illinois can score 3 times where it results in 17 points or more. I don't think Illinois can get to that 17 to 21 range. I just don't. They need a slugfest. They need an ugly game. They need a terrain. They need something. They need turnovers because they're good, but Ohio State's really sound, and Ohio State can beat you a lot of ways. And if there's other dynamics or other factors that force Ohio State to play a certain way and you kind of put Ohio State in a little bit of a box, that's the path that Illinois needs. Because if it's just Ohio State picking and choosing what it wants to do, then the script is written, I think. So again, we'll pick the game. It's 14.5. That is the spread. I'm going to take Ohio State to win the game. I'm going to take Ohio State to cover. I think the Buckeyes win this game. I'm going to go 34-7. I'm going to say 34-7. Ohio State wins this game. I think similar to Minnesota, I think it's a slower starting game, but as it rolls on, especially into the second half, I think that's where Ohio State firmly takes control. I think they score. We may see a defensive score in this game, but I think Ohio State wins this game. I think Ohio State's really good. I think Illinois is still good, but I need to see it to believe it that a team can score 3 times on Ohio State. And that's how I see it. Again, this is Fox's Big Noon Saturday, Big Noon kickoff game of the week from Champaign, Illinois. Ohio State, Illinois. This is a really big game, ranked matchup. A great slate of college football games this week. So, guys, make sure you're tuning in. Georgia, Auburn is a big one, too, in the SEC. Alabama at Missouri is another big one. USC hosting Michigan. That is going to be one that is going to shape the Big Ten race. Can one of those teams insert themselves in the conference race and get their sights potentially set on a college football playoff berth? Red River, Texas, Oklahoma. Is John Mateer going to play? Big questions. Assuming he does, Texas is in desperation mode. They're backed into a corner. I like the Longhorns in that matchup. So, guys, lots of great college football on. Arizona State. Sam Leavitt is going to be ruled doubtful for that game, according to Pete Thamel, against Utah. So we're looking at Utah probably winning that game and covering that 5.5-point spread. So lots of great college football on this weekend. Make sure that you're staying tuned to the socials at Bunch of Nuts on Twitter. Make sure you're staying tuned to the Silver Bulletin. Also at T Silver Bulletin or tsilverbulletin.com. Stay tuned for all of our coverage throughout the weekend. And we will see you guys next week. Dan and Cass will be back for you. Great filling in for them today. Guys, go Bucks, and we will see you next week.